Vivo life porque tú vives en mí, vivo contenta.
What up, guys? It's MauraT, and we're back with episode number 2. This episode we'll be talking about accountability. Accountability is a very touchy subject. Sometimes people don't want to talk about it, and sometimes people just don't want to confront it, face it head on. First, let's talk about what accountability is. Accountability is holding yourself liable, right? Answerable. So in any case scenario, with relationships, in any situation, if you're wrong, you got to hold yourself accountable, or allow other people to hold you accountable. In the case of the law, if you do something wrong, you break the law, you got to hold yourself accountable for doing something wrong and pay the price for doing something wrong in a crime. So, so basically, that's what accountability is. In relationships, sometimes, we may do things, make mistakes and things of that sort, and we're not able to see right away, so we're not able to hold ourselves accountable, liable for that, what we did wrong. And so therefore, that is what I'm talking about today. Many times in many case scenarios, it's very uncomfortable to be told, oh, you did this wrong or you did that wrong. If you're a person of faith, a believer of Jesus Christ, in Jesus Christ, you should be the first person to accept accountability. So, that is important, but also I want to say at the same time, we have to show grace to other people, right? We have to be gracious because, people make mistakes. Nobody is perfect. And so every day is a growing process. And because every day is a growing process, we should be able to, yes, hold people accountable, hold ourselves accountable, but we have to be gracious, right? Be gracious with ourselves, not beat ourselves up so hard that we're not able to get out of a slump. Because sometimes when we acknowledge that we have committed mistakes, we hold ourselves so tightly accountable that we get sick. We get, bitter, we get sad, we get depressed, or we get stuck in situations and feelings that we're not able to get out of by ourselves. So it's important to take steps in which we're able to hold ourselves accountable and then move on, and not just stay stuck. So for ourselves, we hold ourselves accountable. We're gracious with ourselves. We acknowledge what it is that what mistake we made, and we move on, right? For us towards other people, we also have to be gracious, maybe more gracious than how we are with ourselves, because sometimes we can, in our holding other people accountable, we can be so strong and firm about it that we can hurt them, and being gracious with them, we can hold them accountable with love, in love, and then it's a smooth situation, that they're able to accept it, apologize for it, and move on after that, right? So yeah, it's a very I think it's simple, but it's also very deep, and it's very complicated at times if we're not able to understand what accountability is and what is it for. I think people get it confused. That as for myself, as an example, I have many times taken accountability being that people are just correcting me all the time, or wanting to discipline me all the time, or just pound on me all the time and bash me, or whatever the case may be. But it's not really what it is. And so accountability is being willing to accept the consequences from your own choices, your actions, or behavior, right? So with accountability also, there's a consequence, you know what I'm saying? And it may not be that bad, right? It may not be what you're thinking is going to be, it could be just something like, boom, and then move on, right? But because we are stubborn, we may feel stuck, right? We may feel like, oh my God, then what? So let's try not to make it complicated, right? Let's make it simple. Let's not try to make it so complicated that we're in a slump or we're stuck and stuff like that. So yeah, accountability is owning up to whatever situations, whatever mistakes, whatever it is that you committed, owning up to it. So, there's a few steps here that I have written down just to help you get through accountability, right? Because it could be very difficult, uncomfortable, and some people just don't want to deal with accountability, right? Some people just don't want to be that honest, right? They don't want to be honest. So the first thing, there are eight steps that I wrote down, and the first thing that I wrote was understanding what you're doing in the situation. So what it is that you're doing that you're constantly being told, this is not okay, this is unacceptable, this needs to stop, you're going to hurt yourself, you're hurting yourself, you're gonna get sick, etc., etc. And many people don't think or see that that's happening right away. And it's hard when you have people constantly tell you something. It gets really annoying because I'm the first one to tell you it annoys me. But at the end of the day, you do have to identify what it is that you're doing that is not okay, right? It's hurtful to others, and which is why you're being held accountable for it, right? Number 2, be honest. Be honest and sharing with the person in which you're hurting, or in whatever situation that you committed a mistake. Be honest with yourself that, okay, this is what was happening. This is what happened, right? And number 3, apologize. So apologizing, nobody wants to apologize. Especially if you're always having to apologize, it gets annoying. But apologizing makes things right? So if you apologize, it demonstrates that you have identified, you have acknowledged this is wrong, right? And then the person either accepts, does not accept. Either way, you move on because you already did what you were supposed to do. So apologizing is good. And then number 4, manage your time wisely. Be productive. Do one task at a time. And so it's very important to manage your time wisely, doing one task at a time, not overwhelming yourself. Because so number 5 is know your limits and say no. Sometimes because we say yes to everything, it can overwhelm us and be overbearing, right? And it can also get us in situations in which we're going to be like, oh my God, we're going to have to apologize and be like, man, I said yes, but I can't do this. And so acknowledging that you don't have to do everything, you can't do everything, is very important, so that we can stay away from having to hold ourselves accountable for everything all the time. And so, because, we live our lives and we do many things, and we are accountable for our children, for our families, for our job, our careers, etc., our positions at church, all kinds of stuff. So it gets to be overwhelming. It's already a lot of things we have to be held accountable for. Learning to say no is important. Number 6 is the number one thing I tell all my friends, and something I learned for myself, is to be open to change. Because, and I say it in Spanish, el que no cambia, no crece. If you don't change, there will be no growth, right? And so that's really important. So if change is gonna come when you do these things, when you're honest, when you understand your part in the situation, when you're apologizing, there's change happening, and there's going to be growth with that change. Number 7, be outcome driven. And meaning that even if you took all these steps, you're going to have to accept whatever outcome comes. So if you did all these steps and the person did not accept your apology, does not want to get over it, has roots of bitterness, and they just don't want to be that. But, well, you did all you could do, dust yourself on, and you carry on. And so, yeah, basically. And last one is know what or who you're accountable to or for. So, yeah. It's hard, but it's not impossible, right? And I wanted to, with number 8, I wanted to read Romans 14:12 and 13, right? And it says, so then each of us will give an account of himself to God. Therefore, let us not pass judgment on one another any longer, but rather decide never to put a stumbling block or hindrance in the way of a brother. And so with that, it should allow us to understand that even if people are not holding us accountable, and we're not holding ourselves accountable, we're accountable to God, right? We're going to be held accountable to Him, right? And not just that, we're not perfect. We're imperfect beings. And because we're imperfect beings, it says, therefore, let us not pass judgment on one another any longer, but rather decide never to put a stumbling block or hindrance in the way of a brother. Like I said before, we can beat ourselves up, but there are people that even if you're doing all these things, you're being honest, you're identifying what's wrong, all these things, even if you're doing this stuff, there are people that, because they don't know what accountability is, and they don't know how to hold themselves accountable. They don't know that they're going to be held accountable to God and are accountable to God. They don't know, they don't allow anybody to hold them accountable. They pass judgment. They consider themselves, higher beings and all these things, that they can't humble themselves enough to understand the Word of God, to understand it's simple to do these things, to be better people, right? And so with that said, let us take that And make sure that we always remember that, right? That we're not perfect and that nobody's perfect. That we're all walking in this life and we all have to be accountable. Because we're all imperfect beings, right? And so I wanted to read also in Galatians 6, 1 through 5. You could take these two Bible verses and do your research and look into it while you look into what accountability is, and so that you could be reminded. And when you're having a tough time, a really rough patch, because you're not able to identify or not able to accept that in which you have identified is a problem, you can refer to these Bible verses. There's many other Bible verses in the Bible that talk about accountability. You can just do your references and get into it, and it'll help you. So Galatians 6, 1 through 5. Excuse me. It says, brothers, if anyone is caught in any transgression, you who are spiritual should restore him in a spirit of gentleness. Keep watch on yourself, lest you too be tempted. Bear one another's burdens, and so fulfill the law of Christ. For if anyone thinks he is something when he is nothing, he deceives himself. But let each one test his own work, and then his reason to boast will be in himself alone and not in his neighbor. For each will have to bear his own load. And I read that because we're all going through things. We all have our own weight to carry. We all have our own situations, and we're going to make mistakes. We're going to fall short of God's glory. We're going to fall short in front of all, right? And we got to understand that we're not perfect, and we got to, be gracious with one another, because we will want, people to be gracious with us. So we have to be able to do that with other people. This is very a touchy subject, and some people, nobody can tell me what to do about. That's just being stubborn. That's just being cold, having a cold stone heart. That's just thinking that nobody can tell you nothing. You can just live however. Excuse me. So I hope this can help somebody, can help you, and bettering yourself and growing, and then helping somebody else. You know what I'm saying? Episode 3 will be coming next week. We'll be having a new episode every Friday at 8 p.m. And next week's episode is about relationships. So we'll get a little bit more deeper and bettering ourselves within relationships. So if you have not liked, shared, subscribed, do so now. Share this with somebody who needs to hear this. And remember that the Bible verses are Romans 14, 12 and 13, Galatians 6, 1 through 5, if you want to go ahead and do your own research at your own time, at your own pace, and look at the references, and you can have a better understanding of that, and then just refer back to this video and go through all the steps and everything that I have shared with you guys. Go ahead and like and follow me on all my social media. I have an Instagram and TikTok, YouTube. Go ahead and check that out. Details will be at the bottom of this video in the bio. I'll see you guys next time. Y'all be blessed.
Vivo life porque tú vives en mí.